Hi, I'm Bruce Dailsey. I, for a long time, was a tech exec working at places like YouTube, Google, and Twitter. I ran Twitter across Europe, Middle East, and Africa for 8 years. And now I spend my time actually as a workplace consultant. I write about our changing relationship with work. This year, in fact, very recently, the last few weeks, I've had a Sunday Times bestseller, Fortitude, which is about the mistakes we make about resilience, which I think is very relevant to any of us who runs teams or runs companies right now. Probably the spiky way, the punchy way to talk about fortitude is that it addresses the myth of resilience. And you might be shocked by the expression of that. But what I discovered was there's a really interesting situation that we find ourselves in, that whether it's talking about school children, whether it's talking about employees, there seems to be a resilience deficit. People don't seem to be as resilient as they used to be. And I wanted to delve into the topic, really understand what the truth about resilience is, and through that, try and help us find it. Well, I think if you maybe are trying to get other people to be more resilient or try and understand resilience, or actually are just interested in how we might find that resilience courses fill school classrooms or how they find themselves providing webinars in your company, I think understanding the essence of it is really critical. And I'll give you a spoiler. Broadly, what you find is, and as maybe we witness every day, we witness it in the people in Ukraine, we witness it in people surviving from natural disasters. Despite what you might have been otherwise told, resilience is the strength we draw from each other. And actually, that's really relevant for the moment we're in right now, because if you understand that resilience is a collective strength, it's how we embolden each other in the face of adversity. If you understand that, then you might think, wow, then it's no wonder that work feels less resilient than ever before, because our disconnection with each other has been really magnified since the pandemic. So I think understanding that resilience is the strength we give to each other helps us understand how all of us can think about changing, adapting, and accommodating the changes around us into the way that we think about work. What I discovered was, in a really far-ranging 2 years of research, delving into the hundreds and maybe thousands of academic papers, but then chatting to some of the leading experts, is that there's a lot of really intriguing, fascinating stories. I became consumed with the performance of elite athletes. And in fact, one of the stories that people contact me all the time saying, wow, I'm just so captivated with the story of the super elite athletes. And broadly, what you discover is UK Sport, the organisation that in Britain puts athletes at the Olympics or competitors in the Commonwealth Games. They studied the super elite athletes that they'd had go through their ranks. These are people who'd gone to the Olympic Games and won a gold medal. And they discovered there was one thing that characterized these super elite athletes and differentiated them from normal athletes. Each of them, 100% of the ones they studied, had had a significant moment of childhood trauma. Now, that is a provocative start point. But if I told you that single fact sets us off on a really captivating journey of getting to the bottom of resilience and taking us into some really unexpected places, I think you'd find the journey that we go on when we explore it to be completely enthralling. I lost 2 years of my life in the research because I was so blown away with just the strange and meandering journey it took me on. One of the most critical things I think we need to understand is how resilience is found and why there might be obstacles in our way right now. Let me tell you that what I discovered were the critical components, the pillars of resilience, are identity, community, and control. But I really want to emphasize the last one. That sense of control, or sometimes the absence of a sense of control, can be the single biggest impactor on our sense of well-being. If we don't feel we've got any control, any agency, any autonomy over our situation, it can be completely constricting. Imagine the scenario. You open your diary on a Monday morning and you've got back-to-back meetings all day. Pretty common phenomenon, I suspect. And it produces a sort of anxious breathlessness, a sort of sense of claustrophobia. When am I meant to get my work done? And I think this is what we're finding more and more in our teams and in the people that we've hired. We hire high performance individuals, bring them into a really accountable high performance environment, and then stifle them with a way of working that's overwhelming. And I think understanding that, getting to the heart of that, is one of the first steps of really liberating our team. If you've got a team and you want to stimulate creative innovation in them, if you've got a team and you want to unlock fast growing high performance in them, then understanding these components is a little like the picking a lock. It's about making sure that you've used the correct lock pick to actually activate these things to set about a period of transformation. So I think understanding these components is a really critical building block to success. I found myself really compelled to dive in to what I call the resilience orthodoxy. Let me lay it out like this. There's a really well-established notion that resilience is something that some of us have and some of us don't have, that it's a magical trait that some of us either can activate or that we have from birth and some of us don't. And if that was true, it wouldn't quite explain that situation where the immense bravery of people in Ukraine. It wouldn't explain why people who are set upon by natural disasters seem to all in aggregate find some inner strength. It wouldn't explain that, because you'd find something that's far more differentiated. And I think in those experiences, we see a pointer. We see a sense that individual resilience is a bit of a misdirection. And so we can find ourselves as a result of that thinking, okay, well, why aren't my team responding to this individualistic training? The vast majority of resilience training that is delivered in organizations, from the army to offices, from schools to colleges, is about individualistic resilience. And, you know, I'm thrilled with the reviews that the book has got, because I think there's a growing recognition that resilience is a collective strength and a collective element. And right now, there couldn't be a more powerful message for businesses. Businesses are finding, a lot of them are saying, look, work doesn't feel the same as it was before. And I think if we understood that the route to solving that is also the route to not only a much stronger, cohesive team culture, but also a strength and a resilience to the organization, a fortitude, I think organizations would recognize that this has to be a top priority. I was really thrilled that the Financial Times called the book one of the books of the year. Voice of America told me that it was their favorite book of 2022. So really lovely comments. It's got an average of 5 stars on Amazon, which, you know, a lot of books get 3 or 4 stars, or, you know, 4.5 star average. Pretty much every review is 5 stars. And it's just had a wonderful pickup. For people from Ed Miliband called it an absolute revelation. Gary Lineker wrote a wonderful comment about it. I've just been blown away, I think, with the range of people who've commented on the book and have taken something from it. I'm not sure the idea of slowing down our pace of work to suit us is completely new. When I used to work in technology companies, there was a well-established idea that some senior leaders would be resting and vesting and getting their stocks while not necessarily working so hard. So I'm not sure it's completely new. Maybe it is new for us to witness it in younger workers. And I think it's a reflection of the disaffection that some workers have got with the way that we're working right now. The overwhelming experience of burnout, the sense that people aren't necessarily able to aspire to own their own property and they feel like they're signed up to a deal, which is really proving difficult for them. It's why I'm so captivated with understanding what the best organizations are doing. I run a podcast, and I spent this morning chatting to one organization that runs an experiment of Wednesday plus one. Or I spoke to another organization yesterday that's focused on the 4-day week experiment that we're hearing more of. So right now, it's pretty evident that a lot of firms are just about trying to find their way through experiments to working out what comes next. And I think that's why it makes it such an exciting time for leaders to try and work out how they're going to unlock the combination to really let their company achieve its full potential. We're right in a moment where the relationship we had with work is transforming. And to some extent, a lot of people haven't recognized it yet. It's transforming from a relationship like the relationship we had at school, determined by schedules, very tightly knit, very cohesive. Sometimes those friends are the friends you'll have for the rest of your life, to a relationship that we had with college. Sometimes driven by autonomy, you did the work when you wanted, not necessarily governed by calendars and schedules. And to some extent, the relationships with the people you had on your course weren't even the most important relationships that you had at that time. You might socialize with people who weren't studying the same things as you. We're transitioning from one to the other. What that means is that, number one, work isn't as strong a part of our identity now than it used to be. That's really critical, because a lot of firms used to pride themselves on having highly motivated workers who had a really strong sense that their identity was interwoven with the success of the firm. What does it mean? It means if firms are going to achieve breakout results, breakout culture, they need to think about doing things in a different way. We used to talk about business purpose. We used to talk about firms that had a mission. Increasingly, we're going to have to think in a slightly different way. How can we create a strong sense of identity when people aren't together all the time? What you find is that the very best firms have a real clear sense that we're all in it together. And that cohesiveness, creating that when we're not around each other 5 days a week, is going to be a real challenge for a lot of firms. And it represents a huge opportunity for those who can get it right. There's a wonderful commencement speech by David Foster Wallace called "This is Water." And effectively, if anyone's not seen it, he says that sometimes, a bit like water for fish, there are some assumptions that are around us that we don't even realize are assumptions until we're disabused of them. And to some extent, that's what has just happened to work. It was an assumption that we would work from 9 till 6 in the office where we were interviewed 5 days a week. And now we're seeing some of that swept away. For the first time, people are saying, I want to try and understand how I can unlock incremental effort in my team. How can I unlock that discretionary effort that will make a highly motivated team? How can I unlock that, but maybe doing it in a different way to the way we've done it before? Almost certainly, we're never going back to 5 days a week in the office. So for the first time, firms are being presented with a challenge. Can they do something? Can they add ingredients to their recipe that their competitor firms aren't doing to unlock a much better result? It's the killer time for workplace culture discussions. Understanding how you can create a fizzy, motivated, inspirational culture has never been more important. And I think it's going to be the differentiator for business going forward. I've been blown away with the success of Fortitude. I've I've been sort of inundated with requests and conversations. People are sort of intrigued with the themes it's brought up, and it's activated conversations that I hadn't necessarily considered. I still find myself immersed all the time in wrestling with the themes of how our relationship with work is changing. And, you know, I speak to firms all the time who dazzle me with their approach and intrigue me with some of the varied solutions that they're coming up with. So I'm going to sort of keep myself immersed in that, because there's a potential pitfall we make is that we always think we're at the end of the story. And I wonder if we're not even at the start. So there's a huge amount of change yet to come. And I think that's the intoxicating part of what's happening right now. We haven't necessarily reached even the end of the start, really.